As we have all seen this week, traveling can be chaotic and frustrating. Flights can get cancelled or delayed, luggage can get lost or mislaid, vacations can get ruined and wasted. But in the ancient world, the dangers of traveling were on a different scale. Snow or sandstorms didn't simply threaten to throw plans into disarray, but could prove, as they did upstate last weekend, to be fatal. Thieves and bandits prowled the roads and oceans. Lions and vipers lay in wait for their prey, and time itself conspired with appetite to afflict travelers with fatigue or dehydration or illness or hallucination. There is a reason that people didn't travel very far, and a reason that the great tales of the ancient world are filled with figures whose very heroism is defined by their willingness to accept a quest and take an adventure. There is a reason that our sages composed a prayer for both before and after an arduous journey. Even today, the U.S. State Department issues travel advisories and has an online interactive map scattered with symbols signaling just how apt or perilous a trip or visit might be. And this morning, as 11 siblings prepare to depart on a journey back to their father, their brother, who happens to be Egypt's second in command, offers them his own travel advisory. Vayomar aleihem, Yosef said to his brothers, now that they know who he is and they go to bring down their father, al tirgazu baderech, do not agonize along the way. And this is our question. What was Yosef's advice? What was his wise counsel and learned guidance? What had he gleaned through years of itinerancy that he sought to share now with his kin? What was his principal concern about his brothers on the verge of their journey home? And there are 4 views I'd like to briefly share with you today, starting with Rabbi Baruch Levi Epstein, the author of the Torah Tamima. And for him, Yosef could see the thrill and giddiness, the sheer zeal and restiveness in his brothers' collective complexion. For too long, they had watched their father suffer for a sin that they had committed. For too long, they had witnessed his disposition wither, his optimism diminish, his dynamism and vigor slow and thicken into a dull and all-engulfing pain. For too long, they had seen grief eat away at his soul and waited in vain for it to abate, with no avail. But now they had the power to revive him. They could dash across the desert and relieve him of his misery by giving him his dream. They could guarantee that his grief would not only recede, but be superseded by an ecstatic disbelief, a wave of wonder that would wash away the decades of agony. He could find out that his son was alive, that his son did not really die. And it was seeing this zealous energy in his brothers that led Yosef to offer his advice, to encourage them to take a breath, to take it slow and to take one step at a time. In the words of the Torah Tamima, when he said, Al tirgazu baderech, don't agonize along the way, what he meant was, zarazem, he warned them, sheyishmeru atzman mechipazon yutera, to take care not to travel too quickly, shemazik la briut, which can damage the health. Like a person on the verge of dying from thirst, too much, too quick, can do more harm than good. The wilderness can be an unforgiving terrain, and a journey of excessive rapidity can engender all sorts of physical injury. So Yosef, who sees their intent in a frenzy, pierces what he estimates to be a reckless energy and decelerates their pace, reminding them that slow and steady wins the race. Al tirgazu baderech means for him, don't be dangerously hasty. But there is another view, shared by Rashi, who disagrees that speed has anything to do with Yosef's advisory. For him, what Yosef saw on his brothers' faces was not an open zeal, but a buried shame. He sensed that they anticipated not their father's exhilaration, but their condemnation and an allocation of blame. While they knew that this news would bring their father's lamentation to an end. They imagined that his grief would be replaced by grievance. They expected his misery to transform not into bliss, but bitterness, and their relief that they had not committed indirect fratricide was eclipsed by a sense that an admonition loomed in their near future. So Yosef, seeing this, warned them, Al tergazu baderech, do not agonize on your journey. Hayadoeg, Rashi says, he was worried, Shema yarivu baderech, al devar mechirato, that maybe on the journey they would fight about his sale, velomar, and say to each other, Al yadcha nimkar, it was your fault that Yosef was sold. So for this reading in Rashi, Yosef tells his brothers not to agonize on the way, by which he means they ought not to antagonize each other. He sees that beneath their relief lies a suppressed need to lay blame and allocate culpability to avoid the shame of facing responsibility for their sins. And here Yosef advises them to focus on the future rather than the past, to move beyond casting blame and focus on the task of telling their father. And read this way, his advice applies beyond this particular expedition and pertains to the rest of their lives, and gives a vision for forgiveness and reconciliation. Yet another commentator, however, sees Yosef's travel advisory as far less profound than a meditation on regret and amnesty and guilt and contrition, nor does this commentator deem it to be a concern with the dangers of haste. For of Yosef Bechor Shor, Yosef's worry concerned a far more rudimentary fear. He saw his brothers were worried about theft or abuse from bandits or brigands on the highway. He knew just how hazardous travel can be, and knew how lucky his brothers had been to have had a successful journey 3 times already. Thieves and slave traders lay in wait beyond the reach of the imperial watch, ready to take whatever they please. So understandably, Yosef's brothers were wary of the risk that every venture holds, a risk that only increases with each excursion. So Yosef offers them a warning or a caution. Yosef offers them less a warning or a caution than an assurance, hoping to settle their nerves. In the words of the Bechor Shor, he tells them, Al tergazu baderech, do not agonize along the way, don't fear. Me'achar shenoda sha'atem echai, since it is now known that you are my brothers. Ein lachem liyira klum, you have no reason to fear. They were no longer just a small ensemble of siblings navigating the desert for food. They were members of the royal family, traveling under an imperial banner with all the protection that implied. For centuries, across the European continent, there were 3 words that were said to guarantee your safety. Civis Romanus sum. I am a Roman citizen. In the words of one writer, so great was the retribution of Rome should any harm befall even one of its citizens, the villains left them well alone. And in this vein, Yosef tells his brothers that they no longer need to fear the journey. If anyone gives them trouble, they and everyone they know will pay. To be clear, for the Bechor Shor, Yosef wasn't issuing a veiled homicidal threat, but saying that he had the power of the purse and the region's most reliable grain reserves, and everybody knew it. So if anyone took anything from them, lo emkar lo tfu'ah, I will refuse, said Yosef, to sell them grain, to do business with them. V'yamot bara'av, and they will die in hunger. Ad shiashiv hakol, until everything is returned. But there is a 4th and final view that I'd like to share with you today, and it is taken from the desk of the Baal HaTurim. For him, Yosef's concern was not their physical welfare. He knew that his brothers were a formidable band of well-built and well-trained voyagers ready for anything. He knew that it was no accident that they had made the journey successfully 3 times already. What concerned Yosef now was that now his brothers had not only preparedness and poise, but power. Now that they knew the viceroy's identity, it was possible that the brothers would not only journey successfully, but would use their new protection to cut corners with impunity. So for the Baal HaTurim, Yosef shares a warning that speaks not to their physical condition, but their moral responsibility. In his words, Yosef said, Al tismechu alai, do not use my name. Lomar achinu gadol haaretz, or say, our brother is in charge of this country. La'asot aveh l'shum adam, as a way to take advantage of anyone else. Ela al tirgazu la'shum adam, do not agonize anyone else. Leilech bederech al sedei zruah, and use their fields as your street. Yosef's concern, however condescending it may have been, was to teach his brothers a lesson about power that he had gleaned at the feet of his father and through experience and in his dreams. Power is not a personal prerogative or a private privilege or a providential treat. It is a profound opportunity to do one's duty. Power does not provide license, but obligation. It does not offer freedom, but responsibility. It is not used as a means to shield the self, but as a tool to protect the weak, uphold the rule of law, and advance the cause of the Almighty. So when Yosef tells his brothers to fare well, he doesn't simply pray for their welfare, but asks them to take care of others along the way. He does not only pray that they should evade danger, but asks them to see God's grace in the face of another. He asks them to see their change in fate as more than a lucky break, but an opportunity to live their faith and give the world a chance to bathe in the presence of heaven. May we all be blessed with the privilege of power, and may we all use that power to shower others with care and grace and attention. And so may Yosef's message to his kin live on in us. Shavua Tov.